Welcome back to Weekend Movie Bros, where technically my vocals are so much better up here because it's so open and airy. But I am Jacob,
Yes.
and that is that is
There
idiot.
you go.
And
And there's Jacob with sadly no magic mic. Hey, there's one. You know
an evil
what? I'll
twin,
take it.
an evil twin.
We'll call him Magic Brian.
No, I don't like that. We're just Magic Blue. Magic
Blue. that sounds so much better. By the way, breaking news: as we were getting ready to go in here, Blue Beetle dropped its official final trailer as of
Huh.
5 minutes ago, along with apparently everything else today. Because it's a
Yeah.
Tuesday. It's trailer day apparently.
If you guys want to know what day we filmed this on, in case you guys are curious, Wonka came out, Ahsoka came out, and Blue Beetle came out.
And Blue Beetle is 3 minutes long.
Well, I'll react to it later this evening with
We'll
Wonka.
react to it later.
Okay. I guess Zachary wants to join the. Zachary, how about you go ahead and get us started with that first good story of the day? Actually,
Okay.
You know what? I take this all back. We're gonna start over.
Okay.
Give me 1 second, and we're just gonna do a clean reset. I had to download this and upload it. I can cut out the beginning. Just give me 1 second. I got thrown off.
We can end the recording.
Welcome back to Weekend Movie Bros, where I'm not doing this for a second time. That's not what we do here. I am Jacob. That is idiot. What? That's idiot. That's the way. And
that's Jacob with no magic mic. Oh look, Magic Blue.
Yeah, it was funny the first time. You're right, but that's fine. We got interrupted. Technical difficulties abode today. This is a podcast that me and my brother do, in case you're new and you haven't been here before. We do monthly podcasts where we cover the entire month. This is June. There is no particular order, so you'd be like, oh, you should start from the beginning of June and work your way through the stories. No, that's not what we do here. We just see what's fun, and that's kind of how we categorize it, or we feel it. That's what we do. I'd like to mention for anybody out there, if you want to hear the podcast first, go ahead and join our audio. We're on all the platforms that you can be on for a podcast. They come out 2 days. The audio comes out 2 days before the video comes out, in case you guys want to check it out early. And we also have a few fun, only audio exclusives, like we're going to be covering the Emmys and stuff, and that's all audio only.
And the Emmys this year, if something goes through tomorrow, are going to be very, very, very interesting.
I agree. We'll see if we have Emmys. It could just be a digital pamphlet that you could look at. This is who won. This is who won. This is who won. We'll talk about it later. By later, I mean in the second part of June's podcast. These are broken up into 2 episodes. They come out bi-weekly, so this is episode number 1. And I normally leave June part 1 towards the title or whatever for anybody out there trying to figure out what month. All right, Zachary, do you want to go ahead and start us off?
Why don't you? Oh, that's probably why. Okay. Sure. So our first topic of today has been a movie I have been very much looking forward to talking about since the beginning of June. Now, my brother decided to, not get with the people and see this the week it came out. And so, yeah. However, not to talk about that. He'll talk about his own story with this movie. This is my second favorite film of the summer. We will talk about my first favorite film of the summer in the second part of this June. But this is my second favorite film of the summer so far. And overall, this would probably be about my third favorite film this year that I've seen. Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse is one of the best Spider-Man movies, and it is also one of the best animated films I've ever seen. I will never forget the night I saw this. The ending to this movie is just pure insanity. I can't believe they did it. They accomplished it, and there are some implications for beyond the Spider Verse if they can do it. But the first thing I want to talk about before we talk about the movie at all is after hearing everything about this movie, it does not hinder my enjoyment of this film. However, it just it's sad to know that that many people were affected while in the process of making this film. And so when you make sure you understand when you buy this movie on digital or if you continue to go see it in theaters, know that you are doing it not just because you want to go see it, but also in their retrospect and showing them the pride that they deserve for how much they worked on this movie. So again, I love this movie. The Miguel Renaissance is on because of this movie. I don't get why so many people like this guy. He is a jerk in this movie. My favorite character is Spider Punk. He's only in it for a minute amount of time, but man, he leaves a mark. Him and Spider-Man India both are fantastic. But the true heart of this movie is Miles and Gwen. And Gwen gets so much more to do in this movie from the opening to her great story with her dad. I think her and her dad's talk towards the end of the film, as you watch the animation fall down the water, it just breaks your heart. It's so good. And I love what this story continues to talk about and that anybody can wear the mask. Whether you're supposed to or not, anybody can wear the mask. And they make that very clear in this movie. And I really hope Sony and Sony Animation do not pull their punches going into Beyond and really let this story play out the way it's meant to and do not take the criticism of what people have been saying about this movie and that, it just makes everything feel obsolete and doesn't matter. That's not the case at all. I was watching Into the Spider-Verse with my little sister and I looked at my stepdad and went, hey, you see that guy he threw the bagel at? That started all this cataclysm. You can actually see the bagel being thrown at the spot. And I thought that was awesome. Little extra details now you can go watch. And also, I told my brother about this, but since we are talking full spoilers for this movie, and Into the Spider-Verse, when Chris Pine's Peter Parker meets Miles, when you look behind him, it's green and purple, not red and blue. So from the get-go, he is an heir to the Prowler. And so he changed that when he got bit. And I never realized it. And when I first watched Into the Spider-Verse for the first time, I was like, why is that spider glitching? That's a nice little tricky feature. But after watching Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, you now know that spider was in the wrong universe. It wasn't supposed to be there. And it just adds more into the story of Miles from the comic books to this movie. It took people forever to accept the fact that he was playing Spider-Man. No one liked Miles at all at the beginning when he first came out because he ultimately killed Peter Parker in the Ultimate books. That's what happened when Peter died. He took over the role of Spider-Man, and so seeing him not only get the appreciation between the games, the comic books, and now this movie, Miles feels more like the true Spider-Man that this generation has had over Peter, and it's fun. It's nice to see him get his comeuppance. Same thing with Gwen. I think they took a character who was damsel in distress for the majority of her run in the comic books in the 70s and the 80s, dying off and bringing her back not once but twice in two different very versions of the character between Gwenpool and Spider-Gwen. I think Gwen Stacy has had a tremendous reconnaissance since then, and Gwen's shown very, very well in this movie. I also love the Spot. I think the Spot's a terrific villain because it's someone that you can get behind his motivations, but you also understand that, we've all felt that way. Like we always feel like we're inconsequential into someone's story. And this is what would happen if someone took that inconsequentialness too far. And this is showing us what would happen because the Spot never was supposed to be. He was a non-canon event, if you will, because of Miles getting bitten by that spider. And so I find all that, and the way they explain the multiverse in this movie is the best way anyone has explained the multiverse in anything. And I know people talk about the Flash with how they explain their multiverse, and that's cool and everything. But I think what the Flash does so much better than both proper Marvel and DC is that it's a visual. They show you the visualness of the multiverse. Like they show you, like, here's this event going into this event, going into this event. Whereas with Marvel and DC, they don't really show the visual style of the multiverse and what the variant means. I think Spider-Verse does it so much better. And like people talk about with the first one, they explained multiverses and quantum physics to children, and they all understood what they were talking about. Proper Marvel and DC couldn't do that. So I give them all the credit for that. And that's just because of the writing and the directing from everybody, and the acting in this movie is fantastic. So that's what I have to say about Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. This obviously gets a 4.95 out of 10. This is a near perfect movie. For me, I really wish they would have explained more about the part one thing, because in the marketing it's called Across the Spider-Verse. I really wish they would have kept the part one. I think that would have lowered people's expectations, and not knowing that there was going to be an ending cliffhanger. And so that hurts the film a little bit for me. I wish they would explain themselves in that regard a little bit better. But the movie itself, though, I think is perfect. And so that's my shtick on Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Highly recommend.
Oh, okay. My turn. Okay. Hi. I had a different experience with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Before I jump into this, I want to very quickly explain my experience, and then we can talk about the movie as a whole. So I saw this 3.5 weeks after it came out. Maybe even a little after that. Maybe, was it 4 weeks? Something along those lines. I saw a pretty long period of time after the movie had came out. For a multitude of reasons, just wasn't in the cards to be able to go to the theater in time. And this movie was huge from the get-go, from the initial press screenings, fan screenings, whatever you might want to say for Spider-Man Across Spider-Verse. It was unanimous. This is one of the best movies ever made, one of the best animated movies ever made, and one of is a work of art. The hype for this thing was ridiculous. I also had heard a few different murmurs. Nothing was truly spoiled for me, but things were pretty much alluded to for the fact that they were going to happen inside the movie, that if I would have saw it opening night or close to opening night, I wouldn't have gotten any type of levels for that. I also was told that the ending is bonkers, wild, crazy. And you know what? It is bonkers, wild, crazy. That's not really the point here. For some reason, I was just expecting something more. I don't know, but because the hype was so high, and I mean, it was so high, I could not help but want to jump on that train and be like, yeah, that's my expectations. They're going to be so far off this roof. It was a bad idea. It was just a bad idea. I went in with too high of expectations for a movie that no movie could really ever get it. To be fair, it's impossible. So with that being said, I really liked Across the Spider-Verse. It took me by surprise. There's a lot of different storylines I wasn't expecting. I did feel the length of the movie, it being one of the longest animated movies. What's wrong?
No, keep going.
Okay. It being one of the longest animated movies to ever be produced. I definitely felt it. I felt it in spades when watching it, but also I didn't really think that was a bad thing. I had only seen the teaser trailer. Didn't know certain characters were going to pop up in it and things like that. And I don't know. I liked it. Spoiler wise, I did not mind the ending. I just was expecting more. I think because I've seen several movies this year with to be continued on their little tapes. I would say this is probably I thought my phone was ringing. I would say this is the most disappointing one out of them all, because even with Fast X, which is what I mentioned briefly there, it still feels there's so much more in the tank, but so much happened in that I didn't personally feel like we were dropping off in the middle of a story. Whereas this one, I had a very strong feeling this movie only needed 30 extra minutes, and then our story for this particular arc for Miles would be over. So I'm really curious to see how they can expand this 30 minutes. Also, the level that they are on. They're on a 12 at the end of this movie. If they can continue that on for another 2-hour film, I just don't know if it's possible. So I think that's why it was really disappointing when it had the to be continued only because my brain, I'm like, yeah, I felt the runtime, but I could have sat here for 30 more minutes if that's what the story needed to be completed. And it felt like we're just jumping into a third act, and which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't know if there's enough movie for just the third act. I do know that the next one is the ending of this, entire like story that they have. There isn't any more they're making, at least right now, in this particular moment. But that was like my big, like when I saw it, I was like, oh, it just feels like there just needs to be a little bit more writing. Like, what's going on here? You guys couldn't write 20 more pages worth of scripts, like type of thing. I don't know. I think it's beautifully well animated, though. It's one of the most. It's a work of art. I do agree. There's certain shots in here that I want hung up on like a poster in my room. Like, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. I think the characters are so well done. Miles, anytime I have ever seen Miles, he is perfect. Video game, movie, comic book. I've never not liked the character, and more, especially as this progresses and we keep doing this, with these movies and stuff, it just be more evident how much I cannot wait for him to pop up in live action. He's just going to be so amazing. And then we have Gwen, who I absolutely adored in the first one. I was so excited because I was told her character was so much bigger here. I think there's elements of her character that really pissed me off. Just like choices that they decided to make and things. But overall, I had a lot of fun with her. And I felt like her arc was really well, rounded. I feel like her arc is 10 times better here than it was in the first one. So I think that was done with spades. And then with Miguel pulling it in with the villain, ending this off, I also very much enjoyed him as a character. I think he was a little too one note, so I'm very happy that they brought in the Spot to be like a second overarching villain type of thing.
Yeah.
Like another problem to solve. The Spot was definitely shocking. That's one of the things I talked about with Zachary when I got out of theater. I was not expecting the Spot to come back and be like this ultra wide villain that he ends up being. Remind me a lot of Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Of where it's a character, we knew Electro would be a villain, obviously that's a little different, but the way they started his character off to where the character ended, it's a very similar arc in that regard, yet one is handled 10 times better than the other. So that's very interesting because we're dealing with the same, universe, because obviously Tom Holland is called out here, in particular.
Which is
so my favorite Spider-Man in the movie would probably have to be Spider Horse or Spider Baby. One of those two.
Oh, Mayday?
Yeah, I love Mayday. One of those two, I think, or Spider Cat. I think I much more appreciate the Spider-Man that popped up in little tiny little cameos. Overarching stories, I do have to agree. I think Spider-Punk was the standout. I think it's a standout for everybody in this movie. Daniel Kaluuya came to play, and he was not coming home without some money.
And he worked with what he worked with really, really, really well.
Yeah,
did you know that the Spider Cat was an actual cat?
Yeah.
How nuts was that?
It's pretty cool. It's very cool.
Our sister's favorite was the Spider Buggy.
Yeah, I thought that was adorable as well. I also obviously love the fact that Donald Glover was in it
as the Prowler.
That was such a shocking but also amazing, little Easter egg type of thing.
Do you know what Donald confirmed?
Mm-hmm.
He's the Prowler from the MCU.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense.
Which means they're getting things ready for when Miles shows up.
And I do hope that he becomes the Prowler. I do hope that's not something that he's wishing into existence or they've talked about, but they haven't signed anything. Yeah. It would just be really fitting for him. If they didn't. Because he's been such a big part of the reason why Miles has gotten so much traction. He was the
reason why Miles exists.
Yeah, it's it's a big deal. So I thought that was really cool. And I also like the where it's possible that we could see animated Miles pop up with
live action Toby, Tom, and Andrew.
That's a possibility. Also, I think it's really cool that the third one could introduce us to our live action Miles.
Because it could be a variant.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. I mean, multiverse is a thing, and we're all connected. It's pretty crazy. I do agree with Zachary. I think this is the most well handled one. The only difference here is I do have somewhat of an issue with with the multiverses and stuff because technically it should be on the same pathways and lines of the MCU. If we're getting technical here, only because they do reference our version of Spider-Man in the MCU, and so it should be more under what that looks like. But I can understand why they were like, no, we're going to do our own thing. I just continuity because we're adding so many, like, I mean, that's the issue with putting in so many different like layers and stuff, is that it can get very
I hope Marvel
confuddled.
I hope Marvel and Kevin can look at the way Spider-Verse did theirs, and maybe in say Avengers Kang Dynasty or somewhere along the lines they can go, well, since that time the multiverse is wrapped around so much that it's now become the universal canon event thing, and maybe they're able to incorporate it into the MCU and make that the way the multiverse
No,
works.
I don't mind. I just think they really need to stick their guns with with the way Loki did. Because I think Loki's interpretation of the multiverse was
Is
extremely well easy to handle. I just don't understand why
why they changed it.
they just don't talk. I don't understand if you're making a movie based on these characters, you should talk to the people who wrote them originally.
After
Doing a
sitting with
multiverse movie, you should talk to people who
yeah,
came up with the idea to do the multiverse. I mean, that's what you should do. You shouldn't just give it to a new writer and be like, do what you want. I think that's really childish.
I think what Doctor Strange needed, and after seeing, and I was sitting on this for a while because all the multiverse stuff. What I think Spider-Man and hell, even the Flash have is that they have a conduit there. Like there's someone from within the multiverse within the film. I think
Mhm.
Doctor Strange needed someone with him the entire time, and
Well,
not
that was
just
supposed to be
America
America's.
because she's the one. I think Loki should have been there. I really do. I think Loki should have been the way to move the multiverse forward because his series started it.
I
They should have
definitely
been
feel
there.
like that it should have dealt with a little bit of the TVA. I also feel
Yes, the
like
TVA should have been involved.
that they really should have. I mean, there are so many problems with Mom. There are so many problems, Doctor Strange too, and I'm just hoping that, especially with like we'll talk about next month, like Deadpool 3 and the different things that I've heard for that. I think maybe they are going down a different
Yeah,
direction that is going to work really well. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see.
I have to wait
And
and
also,
see.
I'm excited for that one because Sean Levy has dealt with movies before, having to deal with time travel and or things like that. So I think, and didn't love the movie that
Different universe
predicted,
stuff.
but he's done it before, so it is possible. So, all right, moving on. Oh, my rating. Sorry, jumped off that before I said my ending. My rating is probably like a 4.5. It's almost perfect. Um, I would say it's definitely not my favorite movie of the year. We'll talk about those a little bit later on, but it's definitely my top five, for sure. I think it would be criminal if you saw this movie and it wasn't in your top five. I would declare that. I just think with the fact that the ending was a little more dissatisfying than other to be continues that I've seen. I think
Mm,
for a movie to be really working well, ending on a cliffhanger, you have to complete a plot line storyline in the movie you just saw to have some self satisfaction, being like, okay, we completed something, but also leave us excited. So end on that like cliffhanger ending, but have a different storyline wrap up. And they were trying to do that with
yeah.
the Gwen and her dad, but I didn't feel that there's enough weight to that as like an
hmm
overall story. I felt like it was too small for me to feel satisfied enough by the conclusion.
And see, that's why I'm curious about us watching Mission Impossible this month and coming back and talking about the
Yeah.
next cliffhanger film of the summer and seeing whether or not, because I've heard, you and I have both heard from people that you're still satisfied by the time Mission Impossible ends, moving into the part two. So I'm curious to see whether or not we can, reflect on that between this one
I
and that one.
Yeah, I would have to say that I'm really excited to see it because I wonder if it's going to be that our version of Jurassic World Dominion, where Jurassic World Dominion did the best with bringing back legacy characters. Maybe Mission Impossible figured out how to do the best with the to be continued.
hmm
And so I'm curious to see maybe there is a formula. Maybe you're like, just like I keep saying to everybody out there, if you're making a movie coming back, bringing back characters, look at Jurassic World Dominion. That's a great like structure to go down. Not the movie itself, but the way they handled their legacy characters is an excellent structure. And maybe we'll be able to say the same thing with Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, being like, this is an excellent way to do a 2 can be continued.
It makes me so upset that Jurassic World is the one being used as
I
a
know.
legacy character thing, when
But
Star
it's
Wars
true.
should have been the one to set the standard, and instead they were like, "No, I'm not getting into this again. Nope, next story."
We did talk about that in full. We've
I'm
done
done.
videos and stuff on
We're
that. in
past
previous
that. I'm moving
old
on.
podcasts.
Ahsoka's almost here. Let's talk about that when it comes to Star Wars.
All right, let's go ahead and talk trailer breakdowns. So we're just gonna go down the list. We have 4 or 5 here, and I will tell you if I have a trailer reaction. 6? Do we have 6? Is that what Zachary say? I'll tell you if I have a trailer reaction. So I did kind of talk my opinion on it. This is mostly for me to figure out how Zachary felt about things, because like
I already know my feelings about one of them.
So Zachary, did you watch Elio?
I did, and I thought it was hilarious. This looks like Pixar. This looks like the Pixar I know and love. Although I have heard many good things about Elemental, so now I want to watch Elemental because promote your movie better, people. That's all I gotta say. But no, I think Elio looks awesome. This reminds me a lot of the first user for Coco, and I was like, "Am I sketchy on this?" And then you watch the movie and go, "This is beautiful to behold." I love the concept too of that kid being like, "I am the leader from Earth." Are you? Are you all that small? Yeah, we all have this really weird voice that we talk to each other with. Yeah, I'm the leader. Woohoo! I think it's hysterical. I love the concept.
I also love how the ending. It's like we'll also leave you with what you leave Earthlings with. I love you, Mom. Bye, or something like that. Yeah, I think it looks really cute. I think it's one of the first Pixar movies in the past 2 years that I think genuinely looks good. My issue is, and this is Disney's true fault here, I can't decide if I think it looks like a streaming movie or not. I can't put my finger yet on it, and that's because Disney got me used to, just like Disney got a lot of people used to, Pixar movies being streaming Disney Plus movies. That truly hindered a lot of my trying to figure out if it's movie theater worthy or not.
Well, see, and then that's been my thing since the pandemic is that, we're getting movies now that look theater quality, and then when you watch them in the theater, you go, ooh, maybe that shouldn't have been where you put it. And so it's really 50-50 now when it comes to these movies. I thought Elemental from day one looked like a theater quality movie, but judging by the box office, I think, and also Disney honestly, they put Pixar in that headspace. It's not the fact that the movie quality is bad. It's not that at all. It's that Disney at the time when Bob Chapek was in charge, he was so against what Pixar was doing, and that Pixar got to that just momentum of doing it. I think the last one that didn't feel like that was Turning Red. And I think Turning Red was the last great Pixar movie I've seen in a long time, because Jake and I talked about this numerous times. I talked about it on the channel. I think Lightyear is a huge disappointment. They missed the ball so hard with Lightyear, and now this happened. And then Strange New World for Disney Animation by itself last year,
which I really liked, but it was a lot. It was a lot. I can understand. I mean, I feel really bad because I don't really think the concept was good enough for the entire movie for Strange World, but I think it got a lot of hate for being what the movie was more talking about than what the actual movie was about.
But when you look at when you look at Disney animation as a whole, including both animation and Pixar, Disney was built on that. The live action stuff was a near there, and I really hope Iger, before he leaves, can bring animation back to where it was, back to where Disney is at its best, in my opinion. I love all their live action stuff they do with pirates or whatever, but Disney for me is animation. That's what Disney is, and I really hope Disney can, let this movie do its thing, promote it the correct way, and let Elio be the way for Pixar to come back. Same thing I hope Frozen 3 can bring back what Disney needs to be.
These are definitely, I think, big signs. One, I think for Pixar in particular, as much as we complain about having
They
sequel after sequel,
they need a Toy Story 5.
we need a sequel. We
Hmm.
desperately, because I definitely feel like if we would get like a Frozen, not Frozen 3, but like a Toy Story 5 or like Incredibles 3
Zootopia 2.
or Zootopia 2 or something like that, I feel like if we got those movies from Disney or Pixar, I feel like those ones are a must see in theaters. Whereas
But here's
the original ones, which I do like, I think we just have to get the respect back, being like, no, Pixar is deservable. Like we do need to see it in theaters. I think then they can start making more original content like Elio or Elemental, that type of thing. I
but
think we just need a little bit of a break from it because
but
Disney
there's
really screwed the pooch on
they
that one.
did. But there's also a counteract to that, in that when we think of Disney now, we just think of their sequels. And, now when they release original content, people automatically go, it's not what I want from Disney. I want to see, where's my, Lilo and Stitch 17? It's like, where's that stuff? And they're not letting these other movies shine. Their last three original movies from both Disney and Pixar are all three good. Soul, Luca, and Turning Red are all three very, very
But
good
the
movies.
issue is the only thing I have to say, the part of the reason why Elio looks so much like a streaming movie to me personally, one, because I've seen other movies, streaming movies that are very similar concept. I think that's a
Hmm.
big thing. Blame Netflix freedom for that one. But the big thing here being all the original stories that they keep coming up with Pixar and Disney Animation, they throw on Disney Plus.
Hmm.
And they don't even like. Here's the thing: a lot of other movies that were simultaneously released on Disney Plus and in theaters got a theatrical run. Pixar was never a part of that conversation. They automatically just got
Went
the like
straight.
Disney Plus, and so that's why I say we should probably take the next few years to just do sequels, get people more acquainted with going and seeing them in theaters again, get excited for them. Elemental is doing great. It's not doing phenomenal, but it's doing much better than it was expected. It's hit over the century mark, which is phenomenal for that movie in particular. Not
Hmm.
every movie in the box office is accomplishing
We'll get
those
there.
goals. Uh, but with that being, what I mean. So there is money there. I just don't think people
Hmm.
have the enough like. Most people are like, I'll watch it on Disney Plus, and we
Did
have
do
to
you
get it in
think
their heads that that's not an option.
do you think Lightyear should be considered in that conversation of sequel, because technically it is a pseudo sequel to
Lightyear
Toy
should
Story?
have been a movie that performed much better than it did. Lightyear has a lot of problems with the movie itself, from what I understand, from like a fan standpoint. So that was a very big. I think Lightyear, in another good comparison here, is Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, a movie we both have not seen, but have gotten similar reviews and similar
Hmm.
conversations of where you take a creator who has this great idea and they put it against a character that we all love and adore, and the studio heads always are like, "Oh, that sounds amazing. Go ahead and do it." And then you realize it was not meant for that character. Lightyear's story, from what I understand, is not meant for Lightyear, the character.
Which sucks, because Peter Docter, who did Lightyear, has been with the character since Toy
Yeah.
Story 2. He was one of the main factors of why Toy Story 2 went into theaters. So I completely understand why they went to him. But his concept was great for like a giant opera, space opera from Disney. It was not for Buzz.
And I
When
feel
I
like
think
that's the same conversation they're having for Dial of
with
Destiny for the
Indy.
people that it was a great idea for a movie, it just wasn't a great idea for that character. And so
Yeah.
I think that's the real issue when it comes to Lightyear. Also, a lot of people are against Disney. A lot of people are mad that Disney is allowing certain things in their movies and it's pissing a lot of people off. And
And
Lightyear
I
was
will
one of those movies that had
and
representation
I'm
in it.
telling you right now, one of the best things about Lightyear is that
Exactly.
the first 30 minutes everybody praised about from CinemaCon that year is involving all of that, and it's beautiful. It's heartbreaking. It's gut wrenching. I wish the rest of the movie was like that, but instead, I really need to talk about Lightyear. I haven't talked about it on the channel at all. I really need to talk about Lightyear.
Well, maybe we'll do a commentary to it, and we can talk about it in a little more full. Zachary, I think, only saw it in theaters, and so,
I have never seen it since. I've only seen it the one
and
time.
I've never seen it, so maybe that'll pop up in a movie commentary a month from now. And we'll
Mm,
see. The Next one being Kraven the Hunter. I did react to this. I did talk about this. My opinions were mixed, I think is the best way. I had some, I think, before I asked Zachary his opinion, because I feel like ours are pretty similar in the respect of, I like the fact it's rated R. I like the violence of it. That's all good with me. I'm curious. I'm happy they're doing something a little different. Morbius was such a failure. Let's try something else out. But getting his powers through a lion, I don't really know how I feel. How do you feel about the character changes?
This sucked. I am not gonna paint any pretty roses around my. This sucked. I hated it. This is the perfect film to encompass how dumb and yet brilliant Sony can be with this property all at the same time. You look at the Spider-Man stuff within the MCU and the animated stuff, and they are absolutely killing it. However, they cannot make up their fucking mind when it comes to this stuff. Venom, PG-13. Venom Let There Be Carnage, PG-13. Morbius, PG-13. And yet your next film in this series is rated R? This makes no goddamn sense. Morbius should have been rated R, not Kraven. Morbius should have been rated R. That is everybody's biggest complaint with that
Venom
movie.
Let There Be Carnage should have been rated R. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Morbius maybe should have been rated R. Never mind, I take it back.
It's a vampire
movie. I've blocked that movie. I've blocked that real strong.
All of these should have been rated R. They are changing these things for no goddamn reason. Is it cool seeing Chameleon? Absolutely. Does Rhino look really interesting and intriguing? Sure. But I'm tired of these. I'm tired of them. They are boring. They are over the top. I get it. This guy's down his luck. His father hates him. He gets magical abilities. He can kill anybody with his hands. Cool. That's the other three characters we've met so far in this universe.
Just have to wonder, like, I think the issue
What's
here...
What's their point?
What is the point? Are we building to something? Are they going to throw as many characters to the wall and whichever ones stick, i.e. Venom, probably Kraven the Hunter? I mean, it got a pretty well reception, but a lot of people just talked about. I think if you change the mythology for a character that does not need to be changed, that's where people have problems. Kraven the Hunter did not need to have this like superpower type of things that they gave him.
No, he didn't.
Just not. I was real shocked. I was like, "What?"
In the comic books, Kraven gets his strength from the flower from Wakanda. That's where he gets his power from. Is that not from a lion? He steals it from Wakanda, and that's what gives him his abilities of super strength. He has a connection with animals because he hunts them. He is a part of their society. He knows how these animals act, think, how they hunt, when they hunt, where they take a shit, how they take a shit. Kraven knows how these things work. He doesn't get it from a drop of blood from this super dimensional lion that goes, "You're part of me now." I hate it. And also, Aaron Taylor Johnson, I was so excited for you to be Kraven the Hunter. I was so excited for you to be this character. Your American accent, my good dude, is fucking terrible. He sounds so stilted in this movie. I hunt now. I do what must be done to take down my father. I will hunt. Also, if people watched my review for Renfield, what was my biggest issue with Renfield? Fake blood. What does this look like in this movie? A bunch of fake blood. It doesn't look real.
I didn't mind. I did not mind the effects on the blood in the trailer. I thought they looked pretty strong, much better than Renfield, in my opinion.
I just wish Sony would take the time, explain their idea, and tell us where we're going. Because Madam Web is next. And I'm like, where is this going to fit in? Is it going to be PG-13? Is it going to be R? It's not going to do anything with anybody. And this is the one instance where I think Joker is such a out of left field, one-turn thing that just worked because the character was written so well. These characters need Spider-Man. These characters need a function. They mentioned Spider-Man in the trailer with the spiders falling on Kraven. Clearly they want him, so we use him. You have two other people that play this character that are not part of the MCU. Use Andrew Garfield, for crying out loud. He wants to do it. People want him to do it. He fits perfectly with this version of Spider-Man. Let him do it. It's not hard. for everything that is holy. Just let it happen. Oh, it's so aggravating.
Well, on that beautiful, beautiful note of happiness, I thought it looked like a lot of fun. I
No,
definitely
no, no,
felt
no, no.
like
No, I say all that. It does look like a lot of fun. I agree. It does look like a lot of fun.
it definitely looks like a theater movie. That was something I
For sure.
also pointed out. I
Quality
also
looks
thought
good.
Aaron Taylor Johnson looked like he was doing a great job. I just personally feel I did. I enjoyed him. I'm not familiar with the character though, so you can't really judge me on that one.
But
And
his American accent though?
yeah, it's fine. Not a big deal for me.
What?
Not familiar with the character. I can't get mad at something that I don't know about. So
Craven the Hunter is American.
okay.
Therefore, he has an American accent. Aaron Taylor Johnson's British. He can't do an American accent.
So
I just find it weird. That's all.
well, doesn't make a difference to me. And I don't know. I thought the violence look. I mean, I just thought it looked fun. I will have to say that I did find it quite funny. I did giggle when he got his powers from a lion, and then I asked the question that everybody in the comments truly answered me: Is did he really get his powers that way in the comics? And the response was a no. So that is a bit annoying. But moving on to Heart of Stone. This is the first story that we're going to be covering from Netflix's Tadum.
Such a
Heart
stupid name.
it's what plays. I mean, it's not.
I know.
It makes sense, but it's kind of funny. Heart of Stone's Gal Gadot's movie that comes out in August for Netflix, her action flick. And my big takeaway, and the only thing I really have to say about this trailer, one, flying sequences are real cute, especially like airtime sequences, real cute, but they tend to be short. So is that all the action I'm getting? Because I'm going to be a little sad if that's all the action.
You know what, Jacob? At least you get those.
I mean, I can't really speak to that. Well, I will say this much. Fun little fact, if you have watched Ghosted, thank you for the dislike, if you're that person.
What?
Someone was not happy with our response.
Are you kidding? Did you watch the same movie? They didn't use a parachute, my dude. Or dudette. They didn't use the parachute.
Not talking about it. We ain't going to spoil that movie for you. But
parachute!
But the other thing I find to be
So
really
stupid.
well, speaking of something that's so stupid, my big takeaway from Hearthstone trailer: who the hell? Oh my gosh! You know, what, Zachary, tell your opinion. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm getting a phone call, so I'll be right back.
Okay. Make sure you're muted. Okay. So Heart of Stone is like your every other typical day spy thriller. It looks good, sure. Looks shot well, sure. But Netflix has done this numerous times. I got really excited for The Gray Man, and I thought The Gray Man was terrible besides Chris Evans. You could save that one. Oh, ghosted. Gal Gadot is a really good action star. I've never taken that away from her. I think she's great in Red Notice. I think she's great as Wonder Woman. And obviously she can carry a film by herself. She's done it before. It's nothing shocking. So I think it looks good, but I agree with Jacob. Their whole thing is about security and making sure that they can't get hacked, and yet they leave it wide open for someone to come steal. I think is dumb. Uh, this was one of my highlights from the Netflix reel for 2023 of what the movies coming out. Because I really like Gal Gadot. Again, I really do. But overall, this trailer was underwhelming. Much like with many Netflix movies, the trailer was underwhelming. I have to wait till the movie comes out to really give my full judgment because Netflix's trailer marketing really sucks. So I'm not shocked the trailer is just mediocre, but that's just me. Yeah, we mentioned it during it, but I'm gonna mention it again. Please go watch our Ghosted commentary. I have not had that much fun in a long time, commentating on a film, and Ghosted was just pure, unadulterated chaos. That and our new one, Evil Dead Rise, which we just did a couple days ago, had a fantastic time. What a great little concept for an Evil Dead movie. Yeah. Yeah, Heart of Stone looks good. Does it look great? No, I think it could be better. But that's Netflix in the whole. Does it look good? Sure. But can it be great? Absolutely. Netflix really has Stranger Things, The Witcher, and Bridgerton. I mean, hate me all you want, but it's the facts. They have The Witcher, they have Stranger Things, and they have Bridgerton. Um, some of their Korean stuff's pretty good, and their Asian stuff's pretty good. I really like Alice in Borderland. We'll talk about that when we've been watching. But yeah, overall, Heart of Stone looks good.
Okay, so I'm not entirely sure, Zachary.
I'm
Sorry,
excited. Heart of Stone looks fine.
brought this up or not, but my big takeaway here: who the fuck does a spy agency, and has their entire database on one chip? I'm sorry, I don't know if Zachary brought that up or not, but it annoyed the
it's
fuck
like I
out of me.
said while you were gone, was that their entire thing is based on national security, and yet they leave it all in one place to where anybody can easily grab it. I think it's stupid, but I think that's my overall thing with Netflix. I like, does it look good? Sure. Could it be greater? Sure. It's like I just said, Netflix has three things. It has Stranger Things, it has The Witcher, and it has Bridgerton and Wednesday.
Well, it
That's
also
it.
has Dahmer and
I'm talking about, but in Netflix film quality,
Wednesday's
it's.
not film, so
But
Stranger
you know
Things
what
is
I
not a
mean.
movie.
Net, net,
No,
net, net,
I mean, if you're talking about movies, that's
Netflix is more of a show-based subscription service. I'm more reliant on their TV, not very reliant on their films. I haven't watched Extraction. That will change. It will.
Yeah. That's my only thing. My only thing here is Extraction 2 is probably so
But
far
this also,
one of the best action movies I've seen all year.
but this is also Jacob's criticism with Pixar. Netflix movies look like streaming movies. They do not feel
But here's the thing: when I see
theater
a
quality.
Netflix movie in theaters, okay, a good example of this. Speaking of part of the reason why she got this movie in the first place, Red Notice, it did so well. It's part of the reason why she got to go do Hearthstone. Um, is one of those movies I did not like very much when I saw it at home. It was phenomenal when I saw it in theaters. I absolutely adored that movie. And I watched it at home when it got released, and I was like, "Oh, Netflix! Ooh, that was not great. Ooh, what are you doing there, Netflix?" But in theaters, it was amazing. Like I felt really sad. I actually liked Army of the Dead at home. I didn't like the whole thing. I didn't think it was as perfect as when we saw it in theaters, but it still held up pretty well. Well, my thing here is, like I felt really sad that I can't see this. I feel like Hearthstone probably phenomenal in theaters. I definitely would want to see it in theaters. And then Extraction 2 would have been. It could have possibly been my number one movie. It's not, but it could have possibly been. That's how amazing it could have been if I could have seen it in in the right right quality.
My other big, I talked about while you were gone. My other big issue is that I feel like I've seen this movie already before from Netflix. They did The Gray Man. You just brought it up, Extraction. You know, they are heavily focused on spy, espionage, action, adventure movies. I am a little bit. I wish they would change their formula up just a little bit.
Spy, espionage. Well, actually, Extraction's not a spy movie. It's not even having to do with spies.
But it's an action movie.
So you just don't want more action movies? Are you done with the action drama? Because if so, just take a break.
No,
I'm here for it. Give me all of them.
I'm more excited for Rebel Moon. That's what I'm excited for.
I find it really interesting that Rebel Moon will have two versions. You can watch it rated R or PG-13. That's fascinating to me. But
that's Zack Snyder, though.
It's just very fascinating. Netflix does not make two copies. Netflix does not care. Netflix is like, you want to rated R? They'll watch it anyway.
They're invested in him now. They're fully invested in Snyder. So
it's very interesting. Speaking of Netflix, continuing on with that, we have One Piece. I know Zachary said he started watching the anime, and so I was curious to see his opinion on the live action. For the people that I did watch who read the manga, watch the anime and stuff, there was actually a pretty strong response to this trailer. I personally thought the VFX, for being so expensive as it is, were extremely wonky, and I thought that some of the character designs, even though now that I know they're extremely accurate, were also not extremely settling to the eye. So that was like my two takeaways from it. It also looked like another one of those Cowboy Bebops, which will probably.
That's what I'm worried about.
It's probably gonna. It could fail like in its first week. That's also something else I feel like.
So I feel the way I did about Cowboy Bebop, where before Cowboy Bebop came up, I watched the entire anime before it came out because it was on Netflix. They correspond. I was like, cool, I'll watch it. Fucking loved the anime. I thought it was fantastic. I think aesthetically, Cowboy Bebop looked perfect. It's the changes they made that ultimately made that show where it was. And so there's other factors to Cowboy Bebop, but we've talked about that on this channel before. I don't want to get into that again. One Piece, again, aesthetically, looks like the anime. Luffy, all the characters, they look great. And I will backfire your wonky CGI. Some of it does not look great, but everybody's main complaint about this is his stretchy arm. And I'm like, listen, they've been trying to do stretchy arms since 2005 with Fantastic Four. It's never looked good. It'll never look good. They'll never make stretchy arms look good. That's just all there is to it.
The stretchy arm was not my issue. Stretchy arm I was fine with. I was like, yeah, that looks pretty good for a stretchy arm. It was a big, gigantic fucking fish.
I thought the fish looked awesome.
I did not. I was like, oh, that's a choice. That was a choice.
I think it stylistically is a choice.
I didn't like it. That's the moral of the story. But once again, I personally, in my trailer reaction, even I don't know. I'm not familiar with the material like at all, and so I'm happy that people who are excited and think it looks good. That's all that matters to me.
And I will be watching this subbed, not dubbed, because they are bringing back the original Japanese voice actors for the show for the sub, and so we're getting back the original voice actor who does Luffy in the Japanese version, which I'm like, hell yeah, because I like the kid. I think his voice sounds great, but Luffy is very specific. He has to have that really high-pitched squeal, and I need to hear that in order for this character to work, so all good for that. I think this is one of their better-looking anime adaptations that I've seen. Is that saying much?
No. No, it's not.
Because I also thought Death Note looked really good, but the movie itself, absolute trash. So,
Yeah, but what's his face? I can't think of his name.
Willem Dafoe does a great job in the movie.
Yeah, whatever character he plays, I thought looked brilliant.
Great, but the movie itself, though,
yeah, not great. I mean, I didn't mind it until I read it, and then I was like, oh my god, this is all choiceful.
So again, Cowboy Bebop, my other example, looks great, but when you watch the stuff that goes to it, no. So let's hope well for Avatar.
We'll talk about Avatar a little bit later. Let's move on to Expendables 4. I'm curious to see Zachary's newest opinion on it. I loved it. I thought it looked exactly up my alley. I love a cheesy popcorn action flick, and that's exactly what this is. And as long as it's rated R, that's my only stipulation. If it's not rated R, no, it's going to take me a lot to get me to down that theater. But if it's rated R, I will go see it opening weekend for sure. So Zachary, now that you've had time to sit with it, how do you feel?
I've now seen the trailer also in theaters because
it was
in front of Transformers. I've seen the trailer twice because of Transformers. So here's what I will say. I still feel the same way about the beginning of the trailer. It's not believable. I think Megan looks great. I think she fits in an action franchise really well. But this franchise should have ended with 3. Because this is a lot like with my Netflix complaint. It's another generic, everybody getting together action movie of going to get the thing from the sub. And I'm like, I've seen John Wick now. Like I've seen pieces of Extraction. I've seen Mission Impossible, and you can't just rely on gun combat anymore. You have to incorporate more into your movie.
I don't necessarily know if that's true. I don't necessarily.
It looks boring. It didn't appeal to me. It still doesn't. It looks boring to me.
I mean, that's fine. And like I said, your opinion, that's why I was curious. I was curious if things had changed or anything like that. I didn't realize you're going through a hating action movie phase, but that's good to know. That's good to know for later on in life.
I've seen such good action movies recently, and that
but like,
these ones stick out now.
Like, was John Wick Chapter 4 really?
Yes, it was.
Can't say it was, but yeah.
You're really denying Paris? You're really denying Paris.
I'm tired of saying a movie's good based on an hour worth of its film.
I think all 3 hours of that movie are worth it.
And that's great for you. I cannot say the same. I think there's 2 hours worth of that movie. Maybe an hour. I can definitely say at least an hour worth of that movie, not worth it. But we talked about that. We have a whole review in case you're curious to see our thoughts and opinions on John Wick
Mhm.
Chapter 4. I can link it in the cards for you guys.
This feels like a streaming movie. That's how I feel about it.
I
This feels like
also
a
do
streaming
agree.
movie.
I do think this feels like a streaming movie, but I feel like I'm going to have a lot of fun watching it in theaters.
I'll give it a shot, but again, like you said, I'm also holding judgment on this until I find out its rating. If it's rated PG-13, then what I've said is completely standing.
I just Googled it, and it looks like it's supposed to be rated R. Because
We won't
of the
know until they
third.
say it.
Well, because the only reason why people are believing that it's going to be rated R is because of the poor receiving of the PG-13 rating for the third one. Trying to make it be bigger, and it actually made it so much stronger. Like, so much, like, smaller. Like, a lot more people did not go sit out in theaters because of its PG-13 rating. Same reason why we were both talking about we're not going to. Also, I feel like the beginning of the trailer, I think that was them trying to tell you, like, setting the tone, being like, this is going to be, a rated R movie. I think that also was there for that reason. I really liked it, but I will not lie, I am slightly biased only because I do love Megan Fox. Sorry, that hurt.
Is there a ghost in your room?
I don't know. I do love Megan Fox. I love Jason Statham. If they are the leads, like they're supposed to be, I have a very strong feeling this movie will be for me. I mean, I'm watching Jason Statham take down a Meg with a pole. That is something that I'm going to go pay to go see in theaters. So, at this point, you could just say where I'm at.
You know what? Honestly, I really have no room to talk. So,
exactly. All right, moving on to Bottoms. I think it looks really funny. I'm a pretty big fan.
Which movie was this?
So this is Gay Fight Club.
Oh, this looks fucking hilarious. The final joke with the teacher at the end. I don't think we should be discussing this with you. It's okay.
I learned just the other day he's a football player.
No shit, really?
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, very interesting.
I think this looks fantastic. This looks hilarious.
Yeah, it's definitely in my top anticipated movies. Also, I'm just so excited. I've been watching The Idol. We'll talk about The Idol. It's on our list. I'll talk about in I'll talk about it in a section. We'll get there. There is a section in this where it will pop up. And the main character in that movie is someone from The Idol. I'm just really happy that she has other things coming up to let people understand that she is not The Idol. So, either way, moving on to The Flash. Now, before we jump into The Flash, we have both neither seen it, so we're not going to be talking about the movie's story point, standpoint, or anything like that. We figured, because we covered Ezra Miller and their scandal so heavily on this channel while it was going on and stuff, doing updates every other podcast, like it was a common, thing. We figured talking about the box office is only fair to you guys because we did not go see it. We will probably end up doing a movie commentary to it. Is our best guess is when we'll see it for the first time. You'll see our live reaction to it. So,
Jacob, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Before we get into this, how sad does that make you feel?
Not really.
No, if we think about this before anything happened, before any of it happened,
I was never really looking forward to The Flash. This is one of those movies.
You had some type of interest in it before all that happened.
I didn't really, though. Because, I agreed with a lot of people. I honestly, truly do think that the CW...
Oh, I completely agree.
...did the best they can. And honestly, if Snyderverse had not came out, Zack Snyder's Justice League, I would probably be a little more interested in this movie.
Sure.
But because that did come out, and that definitely felt like a conclusion to that story, even though, that universe type of thing, I'm just so done with the DC overall.
EU.
Just in general. Just DC. Just in general. I'm having a hard time getting excited for anything we're going to be talking about for the next few stories. I'm having a hard time. And one of those has my top casting in it. My top fan casting is a part of one of these stories, and I'm still I'm okay.
So here we are. So I have it right here.
So do I.
So you know what? You read domestic, I'll read international, and together we'll say where we're at. How's that sound?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I also want to talk about the opening weekend.
Yeah.
And all that fun stuff, but we can talk about that in a minute. So
domestically, this so far it has made $105,210,665,
I'd like to mention it's now for 25 days.
which is just sad.
Internationally, it's made 156,800 or $800,000.
Worldwide, Jacob, collectively, it's made
262
$262,010,000 and 665
dollars.
It's bad. There's no other way to put this. It's bad.
This movie probably cost somewhere around $350 million after advertisements, not including reshoots, equaling that this movie, just like another movie, Indiana Jones, would need to make closer to $1 billion to even break even for the studio. This movie definitely is not doing that. I mean, there's only, for instance, one showtime at 10 o'clock at night at my theater as we speak right now, because there's other movies. I mean, I have other movies who have been here for weeks. I'm pretty sure I can still go see Fast X in theaters at my theater.
Little Mermaid?
Little Mermaid, I think. Yeah, Little Mermaid has like 5 or 6. We were just talking about that.
Transformers is on digital today, but you can still go watch Transformers in multitude of times in a movie theater.
I definitely feel like it's probably going to pop up for a rental. I wouldn't be surprised if that announcement comes within the next week or so. I think the faster they...
August 10th, we'll get it on digital.
I feel like the faster they ship it out to digital, the better it's going to be.
The better for them.
Because maybe they can salvage whatever is here.
But that's also asking people who didn't go watch the movie to buy it on digital.
But a lot more people are willing to make that type of purchase than they are going to go see a movie in theaters.
Not because of that. I'm talking about the Ezra in the room.
Yeah, but the Ezra in the room, here's the thing. And I can only say this because of, like, for instance, Fantastic Beasts, right? That movie, the third one, which also is part of this whole entire thing. I mean, he affected a few different franchises and stuff. That did really well on digital because a lot of people are willing to secretly pay for something to watch it than they are to outright support something. So someone could be like, I'm not going to go support this because X, Y, and Z. And then it comes out on digital and it's only a $20 rental and you don't have anything to watch on a Tuesday night. And so you spend the $20 because you don't have anything to watch. But you won't say your opinion. You're not going to talk about it unless it's bad. And then you're like, I can't believe I watched this. It's so bad. But if it's good and you like it, you're just going to keep it a secret.
I think 20 is being generous. I think Warner Bros. Make it $24.99. I think they'll make it a rental for $24.99.
Yeah, no, I do agree. But the point still stands. I think a lot more people are going to be willing to rent it or purchase it at home than they are going to be. I think a lot more people are going to watch it when it gets onto Max than anything else. That I definitely do agree. But then again, I thought the same thing for Shazam, and Shazam is performing particularly horrible in the numbers. So then again, I don't know. Hello?
Well, I just think what Shazam has stated, what Black Adam stated, and now what this movie has stated, and I've said this for years now. People are tired of this version of the DC universe. They are tired of it, and this numbers clearly show. And this is what sucks, though. If Blue Beetle is good, if it's even remotely good, it's not going to do well because of everything that's backfired prior. I don't think Aquaman 2 is coming out.
I don't know. Maybe.
I really don't think Aquaman 2 is going to come out because if you think at it, by this point, we are in July. By this point, before Aquaman 1 came out, we were at SDCC and Aquaman had his first trailer at Comic-Con. We will talk about this in the second podcast, but obviously Warner Brothers is no longer going to Comic-Con. So where are they going to put this first teaser out for Aquaman? The only best guess, and my only best guess would be Blue Beetle, but that's in August.
Yeah, that's fine.
September, October, November, and December.
My thing here to look at, we didn't get a teaser trailer for This Is a Bad Movie, but I'm talking about like advertisement runs. This is what we're talking about. So we're not talking about quality of film. We're just talking generalistically advertisement, okay? For Love and Thunder did not get a teaser trailer until 3 weeks before the movie came out.
Why put it out? Why?
One, also, a lot of people are right. It takes a lot of money to advertise a trailer. It takes a lot of money to advertise anything.
And Warner Brothers has no money to do that.
And Warner Brothers, I'm pretty sure, spent all the rest of the money on Barbie.
Yeah.
which is great. The ad campaign looks phenomenal, but
But but again, it brings up the point of the Flash's box office. Movie quality set aside, the box office states that no one cares about this version of DCEU. So why put any money into Aquaman? Take the check, write it off. You did it with Batgirl.
yeah,
What's the difference?
I'm really curious to see what they decide to do, especially because they've not started promoting it. They definitely can't push it. It has to come out if it's going to come out. So I am really curious to see what they do with Aquaman. I do agree, but I think Zachary is very true. I think from Wonder Woman 1984 to this day, does not matter how you feel about the Suicide Squad or Peacemaker. Neither of those things performed well enough to promote or do well enough in charts.
Do you know how
Suicide
much?
Squad historically did horrible at the box office, and Peacemaker never charted in any Nielsen ratings, which doesn't really mean anything. It could just mean, whatever, but it's something to note here.
But
Then you have,
we also have to remember with the Suicide Squad that they also did the simultaneous release on HBO Max
yeah,
and
but it
theaters,
didn't
but it
do
was
well
hurt by that too. But it was
didn't do
also hurt,
well.
but it was hurt by that for
I'm just
box office
saying,
wise as well.
I'm just saying, and then Wonder Woman 1984 had the same exact thing, had the same, got released on both, and it did not do well either. That,
Yeah,
and I think that is just a clear sign here. I also think it is a little bad because two of those movies, the two, movies, they get put on HBO Max because HBO, this is what screwed Warner Bros. Over to begin with. They shouldn't have done it. They should have just done theatrical releases and said, fuck it, if your movie does horrible, so what? But
hmm
that's a conversation for a different day. My point being here is that it does make these seem more like a streaming movie. I mean, I feel like a lot of people I think that's a big issue. The Flash does not look good enough as a movie to go see in theaters with all the controversy if you knew about it. If you didn't, you heard about the bad, wonky VFX. You heard that the story is confusing if you're not familiar with the entire DCU. Like the entire, like you have to go back, because they're trying to do like this whole,
1978.
Also, I do agree. I think the sweet spot for multiverse movies, if you're bringing back characters, is from the early 2000s. Anything before that or after that, I think after that's too new. I don't think a lot of people are going to care as much. Could, but I think it depends on the year. Then before that, especially in Michael Keaton and Harrison Ford days, particularly since they're the two actors that we're talking about at this very moment in time, I think it's just too late. I just don't think the people who went and saw those movies are going and seeing these type of movies today. You can get excited, but I think a lot of those people are going to be like, I'll watch it on streaming. I can wait. It's not going to make a difference to me. I think that's also a big factor here is that Michael Keaton was supposed to be that big pull-in, like
And
Tobey
he
Maguire,
wasn't.
Andrew Garfield were for Spider-Man No Way Home, and it's just there wasn't enough people who were excited for his Batman.
They were relying too heavily on an audience that at this time has been too scared to go back to the movie theater, and they've moved. Much like us, they've moved on. They've seen other now people play this character of Batman, and your movie is focused heavily on Tim Burton's version of
Yeah.
the character. And I mean, I can ask you, do you care at all about the 1989, 1992 Batman movies at all? No,
No.
because that's not your Batman. You were more in line with, Christian Bale, Ben Affleck, hell, even Kevin Conroy, more than Michael Keaton. And
And
so,
yeah, I just agree. And I think the same thing goes for Indiana Jones. I think Indiana Jones is performing better than the Flash for sure. Not saying that. I'm just saying that he is a character I feel like is a little too
we're
old to
10
have this
years
resurgence.
we're 10 years too late for what they want to do for Indy 4. For
Yeah.
Indy 5. We're 10 years too late. If they really wanted to kick that off, it's the same thing with The Flash. This movie's been in production for 10 years. For 10 years, this movie's been in production. And we didn't find out about Michael Keaton until what, 2019 or 2020 was DC fandom. Was it 2020 or 2020?
2020.
2020.
2020.
And so they've been sitting on Michael Keaton since 2020. And then it's the thing. Ezra Miller happened.
And
That really,
Batwoman.
yeah.
And the Batgirl movie got canceled, and we all knew that's where his story will continue. And so I think a lot of people also just lost a lot of faith that you're going to go see a movie with a story that's not going to end well. Also, because of the amount of leaks and the amount of interesting ways to do cameos, I guess
Yeah.
The Flash is an interesting little piece of media. Let's just put it that way. If you know, I'm not going to spoil anything. Once again, this is not a review
So
because
I wanna ask you, if you were David Zaslav right now and you saw what your movie was doing, would you regret the decision not to take the check for it?
No, I definitely would have signed the check for this movie. I would, in my personal opinion, okay,
Mm.
I definitely would have written off The Flash. Take it as, as a tax write-off. I would have put out Aquaman 2. I'm only saying this because Aquaman 2, one, does have Amber Heard, but a lot of
Yes,
people seem to be over that. That seems to
but
be
it
like a
also
thing
has a
that is,
billion-dollar first
but
film
it
behind
also
it.
has a billion-dollar first-person film on it, and it has the same writer, same director on it, so it can't be like we're setting it up to like great failure, right? The Flash was with a character, with a person that a lot of people believe should have been fired a long time ago. And it had writers that no one trusted, a director that landed one film. Like he did It, and that was phenomenal. And It Chapter 2 was the big questionable. It's like, what are you doing here? So I don't even think you can say Andy Muschietti was like a great draw for this either. And then you have the Snyderverse, and all they keep saying on all their interviews, the Snyderverse is dead. The Snyderverse is never coming
And
back.
yet you keep going back to it and angling it and pulling it and tiring
Exactly.
it.
And this whole movie is surrounded based on that. And there's been so many reshoots for this. I would have said the Flash should have been the write-off. And they should have released Aquaman 2 only because it did make $1 billion, which means there's a higher chance people are going to go see that one over the Flash
Over
because they're already
this.
familiar with it. And they're
I
familiar
th-
with that
I
story.
think Flash should have been the write-off. Aquaman should have came out in June, and Blue Beetle should have came out in December, leading into 2024, leading into what their new DC universe was going to be. That should have been the order. But again, we're also talking about this about pulling the Snyderverse. The whole reason the Flash came out right here was because it was supposed to set up the next part of the DC universe with Jason Momoa's Aquaman, with Ben Affleck's Batman. So again, it reiterates your point: are you done with it or not? And if you're not done with it, then you need to talk to Snack. You need to talk to Zach about it then.
They're done with it. And
They're done with it. They have to be done with it. There's no way they continue it. They're
and
stupid.
which is something we're going to continue to talk about over these next few stories. I just want to put it. This is just again proving my statement that I made a few months ago, where I was like, they should have done a hard reboot. They should
Mhm.
have rebooted everybody. Zachary was against that at first. He was like, no, that's a bad idea. But now that he's seen the box office for The Flash, which I think is the perfect example of the Snyderverse, I think doing this half-ass reboot is not going
Is
to help the DC. I think we're just going to stay the same path. James Gunn and Peter Safran will get fired eventually or step
see,
down. I don't know if fired, but they will step down because
I'm
and
s-
they'll bring somebody
I
new in. I
I
personally
agree.
think we should just gone. Sorry, 1 second. You can say it. Personally, think they should have just gone with Matt Reeves. I know that does not make Zachary happy, but I think that's what they should have done.
Okay, so
Especially because they are Matt Reeves is already talking about how he's excited to bring in his own version of Superman, his own version of Wonder Woman into these films. If you're
here
going to do doubles of everybody, you're not going to make anybody happy in the end. And then the
no,
Batman, the franchise that you are building, will eventually implode just like everything else, or you're
which
ultimately
is
going to hurt like
why
Superman Legacy or something like that.
which is
Go. Sorry.
why you leave the Batman alone. You
Yeah, I'm
don't
talking about what
add
Matt
any.
Reeves wants.
I know, but really think Matt needs to think and sit down for this. Don't do it. Leave the Batman alone. It's great as it is. I will fight you on the James Gunn thing still. I can 110% agree with you. Bringing back old people from this universe needs to stop. I completely and utterly agree. However, I am not going to judge James Gunn's DC universe until
That's
we
fair.
get there. There is no reason to automatically write him and Peter Safran off until we get Superman Legacy. They had
The
nothing to do with the Flash.
well,
He
I
was there.
only sorry, not supposed to interrupt. I'm sorry.
He was there during all the bullshit that would happen after David Zaslav came in. James Gunn likes the Flash. He had nothing to do with the Flash. Yes, unfortunately, he did have something to do with the end credit scenes. That's something I can't take away from him. He made that mistake. That's on him. He shouldn't have done it. I get what they were going for. But his universe really doesn't start until Superman. Hell, it really doesn't even start until Blue Beetle, because he has said that the Blue Beetle is DCU material. And so, if Blue Beetle is the quality of DC movies that we're going to be getting with Superman, then I feel like we should have something. But after talking about Guardians with my dad recently, his wife shouldn't be a part of it. Oh, what's her name? Oh, Viola Davis
Hmm.
should not be a part of it. She should not get
Makes
her
me
own show.
sad, but yeah.
That stuff I completely agree with. But I don't think we should write James and Peter off right now.
Well, I'm
Until
not
we see
saying
what
right
their
now.
story
I'm
is.
just saying in 5 to 10 years from now, maybe 5 years, because there's not enough break in between these things. Maybe 5 years from now, I just don't think there's going to be enough time in between The Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman 2, which are probably all not going to do well, just based on
Completely
previous
agree.
box offices. I don't think there's enough time in between that, tarnishing the brand as badly as they have, and Superman Legacy. And people are still mad to this day. There is still a legion of people out there who are mad the fact that Henry Cavill didn't get his final, like, true
Even
ending.
he has moved on. Move on with the guy. You keep
I
bringing it up to
know.
this poor man. Leave him alone.
But that's
He
my
got his
thing,
own
is
shit
that
to
people
worry
are
about now.
still mad about it. So I think people are not going to be super accepting. And then if they do decide, I agree with Zachary 110%. Matt Reeves said no. They went to Matt Reeves first. They're like, hey, can we really just build off this entire franchise off of your movie? It did so well. People love it so much. And we can totally see where we can enter, all this other fun stuff into it. Can we please do it? And he said no. He told them, I want nothing to do with that. The Batman is the Batman, and that's what it is. I'm building a universe outside of that character. Nobody else will be a part of it. Diana, whole 9 yards, right? Then he goes back saying, no, I actually think I have a few ideas. That's not how this works. You decide to not do it, which means we should not be franchising your movie out. We should stick to the universe you decided to go with, and that's the Batman. Sorry, dude. That's what you decided. And that's what you should do, because it's just going to make everything more complicated as we go forward. The next story that we're going to talk about is already under a lot of scrutiny, because it's going to be super fucking confusing, because this is going to be like the 40th Batman.
Well, for me, it's not even here's my thing when it comes to that part, is that people have been playing James Bond since 1950.
I know.
People have been playing Bond for 50 years. People have been playing Batman since 1949 and the serials before movies. We've seen Shazam in 1939.
My thing here... Sorry. I'm having a hard time.
It's not that there's an overabundance of these characters' solo movies. That's not the problem at all. It's the quality of these solo movies that we are getting that is hurting these brands. Yes.
Okay. May I make a rebuttal?
Sure.
The issue is, the reason why people are accepting of a new Batman every 10 years, I don't really, there's somewhat of something like that, is because there wasn't 3 Batmans running around at once.
But I can rebuttal you with Spider-Man. We just had 3 Spider-Man on screen together, and no one said
a word about it. That's one movie. That's one movie. All 3 of their trilogies, or I guess, sorry, Andrew, you didn't get your 3rd one, but you understand what I mean, were paced out in between lots of years in between. I mean, not Amazing Spider-Man. Huh?
There are only 2 Batman and Flash.
No, I'm talking about how there's many Batman.
I'm talking about the ones being advertised in trailers without giving anything away. There are 2 in the movie.
No, I'm not talking about the Flash. Okay. I moved on. I'm sorry. That's my fault. Let's move on to the second story. Zachary's confused, and now I understand why. I have moved on from the Flash. Let's move on. Batman, Brave and the Bold. The reason why this is a bad idea, let me play it out, and then we can talk about the news that actually follows. This is bad because the Batman, starring Robert Pattinson, is phenomenal. It is a masterpiece. I've seen it twice. I'll see it again eventually whenever Zachary finally gets me to sit down and watch it.
Don't bring that sore thing up.
He can literally pick it any month he chooses.
I do pick it, Jacob, and then what happens?
Well, that's why we decided. Yeah, well, Avatar is now the group pick. Okay, we can't. You are no longer the group pick. I'm just saying, take the win where you can get one. Okay, dude. Either way, it's phenomenal. But Robert Pattinson's Batman is going nowhere. They're doing part 2. They have a spin-off show. It's staying around. So my thing here is, and I'm just talking about journalistic audiences and based on other things like properties like this that have done bad because of it, most people don't like the fact that you can go see the Batman Part 2 and then a year later they're thinking, oh my God, there's a new Batman movie coming out. It obviously is going to follow Robert Pattinson's Batman if this comes out first, vice versa, whatever you want to say. Whichever one gets to the theater first. That's the important thing here. And then they go, and this hour gets advertised, and you're like, what the fuck? I don't want to see this. This is not my Batman. That's the issue that this DC is going to run into with both especially in the Batman corner of this universe. I think with Superman Legacy, which we're going to talk about, I think we could possibly make it very definitive. This is something different.
Mm-hmm.
But because we will have multiple Batman and Jokers running around in this universe, ultimately, because like Batman 2 will probably have part 2 will have a Joker in it. We'll see if they end up going down that route, but there is a possibility.
Against that, I think Batman Part 3 is where we get the Joker. I think Batman Part 2 is
we'll
Mr.
see.
Freeze.
I don't know. We will see, but I'm just saying there is a possibility. Then we have Joker 2, which are two very different things, but somehow I think the world will accept that because they feel like two very different.
Yeah.
Like you don't feel like Robert Pattinson's going to jump over here. But depending on who they cast for Batman, the Brave and the Bold, and depending, I don't know. I just don't know if it's a good idea, in my opinion. And then you have Annie Muschietti, who had a little bit to do with the Batman. I don't really know if this is a good idea. And then you have Christina, I can't think of her last name. What is her last name?
She wrote Birds of Prey and Bumblebee.
And The Flash.
And The Flash.
That's how she got this. Hold on. I'm going to look it up, Zachary.
While Jacob's looking that up, I have a fun little fact about that. When people talk about the Flash's script, they remark more of Phil Lord and Miller's script, and they feel like Christina came in and just twinkled it a little bit, and that's why the movie's so funny from what I've heard. I'm like, so did she even write it then? Like, what? Like, why give her the credit?
That is a very common complaint about the Flash, especially when it comes to her, about her getting this role, because a lot of people are like, she didn't even touch it. Why is she even like a writing?
Bumblebee was a fluke. I can now officially say this in my heart of hearts. Bumblebee was a fluke. She did really good in one movie, and the one movie I really need her to be good in. So, thank you, Christina, for making Bumblebee really good to give us Transformers: Rise of the Beast. I appreciate you very much for that reason.
Christina Hodson is who we're talking about here. She was a new up-and-coming writer. She did Birds of Prey, Bumblebee, Shut In, which is horrible, and she also did The Flash. Unforgettable type of thing. She's the writer going to be for Batman, the Brave and the Bold. And a lot of people, like Zachary was saying, look, the Flash already had a script written for it. And a lot of people came in thinking she tweaked this little thing here, she tweaked this little thing here, and that she basically ghostwrote it. Like, she didn't really write it at all.
She didn't do anything with it. It's Phil Lord and Chris Miller's script with Annie Muschietti directing, with her twinkling it around a little bit. That's basically, it's a hodgepodge. It's a hodgepodge of a mess, and that's what the movie is. It's a convoluted hodgepodge mess. It just shows. But when it comes to the Batman stuff, here's where I think DC can do this if they do it in the correct way. Now, we now know that what James Gunn has said is that moving forward, anybody who is in animation, video games, live action movies, comic books, that's their version. If I'm going off of that, then they already have their Batman technically. Technically. I could be wrong, but technically they already have their Batman. We've already heard this Batman already, and that, my friends, is who I think will get the role, and that is Jensen Ackles. That's who I believe their Batman is going to be. He has been Batman since The Long Halloween Part 1. That is when the James Gunn stuff came out. And he has been animated Batman since then. They have moved on to this version of Batman. And so I think Jensen will be their Batman. How I think the Batman, and I think they should leave Batman out of their title. I think it should be called The Brave and the Bold. That's another great way to differentiate these movies. Because you're going to call it the Batman Part 2, the Batman Part 2. Call it The Brave and the Bold, differentiate it that way. The other thing, promote the hell out of Damian. Make Damian your forefront for your advertisements, not Batman. Make the Bat family your advertisements, not him. Let him be the center point of it, but let your focal be on it. Nightwing, Batgirl, Batwing, Damian. Let it be that and the story you're going around. However, this movie already has a hurdle, and that is Annie Muschietti. I think the man is a great director. I do not like horror films, but I think he directed the absolute shit out of It Chapter 1. Very, very, very well. I do not like It Chapter 2. It's still well directed. You can't give him not that.
That is true. I just didn't like it.
Yeah. And I've also heard the same thing about The Flash. He directs The Flash really, really well. But he also directed the biggest box office bomb in superhero history in the past 10 years. Why give him this movie instantly? This is my biggest issue with when they announced 7 Power Rangers movies. Don't announce this shit until you see how the movie's going to actually do.
I'm perfectly fine with them announcing sequels and stuff. Like, I get it. You have to promote. That's perfectly fine. Like Power Rangers, for instance. I think 7 is a bit excessive. I do agree with Zachary, which is why he brings it up. But I don't mind them being like, like, before the opening, oh my god, we're getting a sequel to Barbie. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm just using it like as an example here.
Example.
Because they're trying to promote the movie. That's another way
Sure.
that they can get headlines for it, to promote people to go see it, because you're already excited because there's already going to be a sequel coming. That's fine. I don't think casting your director, like announcing your director and writer based on a movie that you don't know is performed well enough yet, I think that's where the issue lies. Like, if they would have announced The Flash 2 before The Flash came out, that would have been fine. A bit cringe, but it would have been fine. Like, it's
not
whatever.
happening anymore.
It's definitely not happening, but they can go back on that because it was just an announcement. It wasn't greenlit or anything like that. It's not moving forward.
They greenlit Andy. They can't go back on that.
They can't go back on this. It will look really, really bad if they take it away. And so yeah,
if people aren't seeing the Flash enough as it is, if they back out on Andy now, the Flash is done making money. That's just
Okay.
So I think of all of the current DCU projects, the Brave and the Bold already has a giant hurdle. I don't think our next story does, because right now comic book fans are in this man's good graces because of a film that came out in May. And because of scenes involving a certain character in that movie, I think people have more trust in him. Plus the casting that just happened for, we could say it now, Superman Legacy. I think James Gunn is in a better mindset for fans over Andy because of the current bias about the Flash. I think with James's well-received Guardians movie, the casting that just came out that everybody loves, and the amount of time we have between then and now, I think James has a better chance at being successful over Andy right now.
With Superman Legacy, like Zachary is talking about, we have moved on. In case you guys are listening to this, we are moving on to Superman Legacy. We're going to be talking about the casting announcements. The writer and director is James Gunn. My thing here, before we jump into the casting, because the person who I wanted to win did win. I've been promoting that he should be Superman since I first saw him in The Politician in 2016. I've been a big fan, and I've always thought that he would make an excellent, especially Clark Kent. But I feel like he does have a look for Superman, and he definitely looks like he could still have the bulkier look, but still slim, which is the perfect look for Superman in the suit and stuff. So I'm very excited for it. But before we get to David Cornstreet and the Rachel Brosnahan, who plays Lois, I want to very quickly say that I think this could be good if they put a leash around James Gunn. And I think that's going to be really hard to do because he is the person who runs the creative side of DC. I think James Gunn...
That's Peter's job.
I really do hope Peter is there being like, hey, I understand this sounds so cool, but maybe we should go in this direction.
Tune it down just a little.
Yeah. I want this to be PG-13, first and foremost. That's what I want. I want it to be soft. I want it to be more on the lines of Smallville, in the terms of like Smallville when he first started. Not I want the more happier, brighter side of Superman than the darker side that the DCU has been doing with Man of Steel. I think that is the perfect way to make the difference between the two.
Oh, 110%.
You give me the softer Superman that I have grown to love before, but sure, definitely need a break. We definitely need something different. And I love me some evil Superman. Do not get me wrong. But I already have that. Homelander is doing a great job over on The Boys. I don't need it in two different places. And it did not work out. Most people do not like that version of Superman in their movies. They want the fluffier, the kinder, the more loving version.
They want Henry Cavill with a smile. That's what
they want. They want Henry Cavill with, just not the way they did it.
Yeah.
But I'm super duper excited for the casting. I think the casting is phenomenal. I'm not the biggest fan of Lois. I'm just not familiar with her. I'm familiar with the other people they were choosing between. But I'm sure if they think she's going to do a great job, as long as they have the chemistry and stuff.
Are you going to watch Maisel now to kind of get ready for her for the movie?
No, I just have no interest in it. I'll just be surprised, So
my other thing with the other story before this was Batman the Brave and Bold, the other way to make sure that these are differentiated from each other is show your lighter version of Batman that you're doing within the DCU. Show the comedy, show the family man of Bruce Wayne. That's the other way to differentiate between that one and that one, is that show him as the father figure for Damian. Not
I do
as
agree.
a brooding solo guy.
My only thing my only contestment is I do think most people prefer Batman when he is dark and brooding.
Sure, you can still have that, but make your Bruce Wayne not just a soft billionaire boy going, "I have all this money, yada yada." Make him the father, so that way when he goes out with Damian, he's concerned for him, and it's not just him. Let that first movie be about him trusting and having a team around him. Don't let it just be a solo Batman movie. Have it people around him. Now, when it comes to Superman, I want it to feel like a mix of 1978's Christopher Reeve when it comes to him being soft, lovable.
That was a great one. Yeah, thank you.
What James Gunn says perfectly, you want to give the man a hug. And that's what Superman should be. However, also have that dystopian, not knowing where he is act of Henry Cavill. Like him, not feeling right within our world, but him wanting to love our world so much that he's willing to put that aside. Let him not be, use the alien part of him. Let him stand out. Let him be that sore thumb that people have to get used to. And let your Lex Luthor be sadistic. Let him hate Superman. And not with like a jittery thing. No, don't do that again, please. Let him be maniacal. Let him be smart. Let him think 2 steps ahead. Let him be Lex. No hair. No hair. Let him be Lex. That's my big get for Lex Luthor. Let him be bald, please.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. The Lex Luthor, I think it'll also really depend on the casting of Lex Luthor.
Well, now we know why the 2 people that are in right now that talks for Luthor make more sense now because of the person who's directing the movie. So that makes a little bit more sense of why they're up for the role.
It would be absolutely. I would feel so bad for Nicholas Hoult.
I want him to get this so bad.
He's just lost out on. He's been on the top of so many of these lists, and he misses them.
He was supposed to be da-da-da-da, but he missed it. Let him be Lex. Because the anger on his face at Superman will be pure. It'll be real. It'll be genuine. He hates this man because he wanted to be this man. That's a great line for the movie. There you go, James.
All right, the next one. Let's move on to Netflix, the Avatar the Last Airbender. It comes out later on this year, right? Or is it 2024?
2024.
There you go. They did release a little teaser
of 2024.
Oh, okay. They did release a little teaser trailer. I was going to react to it, but there really wasn't anything to talk about. The images were mostly what to talk about, and I was mostly curious to see how Zachary felt about it. I am familiar with Avatar the Last Airbender. You will actually see more of Avatar the Last Airbender on this channel in the next few months. That's all I'll say.
We won't say where or how, but it'll be there.
That's all I'll say in this regard. But with that being said, for looks like all the looks in general, oh my god, please don't break my laptop with my phone. All the looks in general feel very costumey. I personally feel like I'm really excited to see them in like movement. I think that's really the issue that I have with a lot of these is the movement. I just want to very quickly touch on one of the actors before we get going. The actor who plays, I can't think of his name. What is his name?
Zuko, Katara.
Her brother. Okay, hold on.
I don't know. I know
Sokka.
Katara, Sokka. Thank you. Sokka.
The actor who played Sokka lied about being a Native American. He joined a fake tribe to get the role. He is not actually Native American at all. And I do think that right there alone will end up hurting this in the long run. That's all I will mention here. We'll see what it does. It is a Netflix, so a lot of people will click on it. So it does have that going for it. Ultimately, it has that going for it. But I do believe when the show starts getting more and more promoted with like actual teasers and stuff, you're going to see this get brought up more and more. Because it was a very big conversation when these photos got released because they were there in Paris when they did this whole entire that's where it took place. But that being said, I don't mind the photos. Once again, I just think they look a little too much more like I'm LARPing than
I think Aang looks good.
See, I'm not sold, but also I have to say I'm pretty much sold on the actor. I've seen a lot of interviews with the actor.
Hmm.
and he definitely gives off the right vibe for the character.
I also think Katara looks pretty good too.
And once again, I think it will look much better in. I
In
think they will
motion,
in motion. They look like
Zuko looks
people.
great. Oh, I love Zuko. The Fire Nation helmet looks great.
Yeah, I just think it's gonna look much better in movement. I think right now it looked like these group of people got together and like, oh my god, I love Avatar so much, and I have a lot of money, so let's go, take amazing photos and post them on my Instagram type of thing. I'm not completely sold on a whole production just yet.
Here's what I'll say: they look better than M. Night Shyamalan.
That is true. That is true, but that's not really a high bar.
No, it's not. But they look like the Avatar the Last Airbender. By the way, do people know why this show is called Avatar the Last Airbender? Does anybody know? Can anybody raise their hand and tell me? No? Okay, I'll tell you anyway. This show was originally supposed to be called The Last Airbender. No Avatar. But it was coming out the same year Avatar 1 did. And Avatar got to the Avatar the Last Airbender got to the title first. So James Cameron his movie was supposed to be called Navi. Not Avatar, Navi. But since Avatar got to it first in the rights war for some reason for that word, Avatar became Avatar, and then Avatar became Avatar: The Last Airbender. They had to add the Last Airbender to the bottom of Avatar. That way they could differentiate him.
I did not know that.
So you can all thank the blue people for calling it Avatar: The Last Airbender. I find that funny.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, I did not know that. Okay, well,
so here's my thing. I've never seen this show. I've never seen the cartoon, so I have no real opinion.
I have.
My real people are gonna hate me for this, but it's fine. My real opinion for this whole shebang is M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender. That's all I've really seen for this. I've seen clips, obviously, of this show, but I've never seen the show. So obviously, I'm gonna do my homework, get the idea, watch before this comes out. I have time. I'm not worried.
You do have time. You do have time. That's true. All right, moving on to the final story of the first podcast here. And we're going to talk about our top shows of the year. I changed it because I thought thinking about it and really, I'm really curious to see what this list broadens to at the end of the year. But for me personally, my top show of the year is obviously The Last of Us. I just have this such fond love and appreciation for it, and I definitely feel like personally for me that is my number one show for the year. Another one, since we already talked about The Last of Us in great detail, another one I highly recommend if you have not checked out yet, it's on the AMC Plus, which is a little more just annoying, but you get some pretty cool services with AMC Plus, like Shudder and things in case you're into horror, is Interview with the Vampire. It was absolutely phenomenal.
I've heard
one of the best shows as well I've seen this year. So well, it came out last year, but we watched it in January. It was so well produced, so well acted, and the relationship it has so much little nuances and stuff in it that I highly recommend. I'm looking at the other ones, and I mean they're good, but they're not Last of Us good.
I'm looking. I'm trying to
think. I also really enjoyed Daisy Jones and the Six, which I watched. A Yellow Jacket season 2 was phenomenal.
You liked American Born Chinese, did you not?
I very much enjoyed American Born Chinese. Thank you. I don't have that one tracked, I guess. That one also was great. I didn't like the whole thing. I will not lie. I also really enjoyed Citadel. Not a lot of people did, and which I understand. It's very cheesy, but I liked it for what it was. It's my type of show. And yeah. I have a few going on right now that I'm really excited to talk about at the end of the year. We should be done with them, such as I'm curious to see if I'll like the whole thing for Secret Invasion. I'm also curious to see if Dead City material lands. And also I'm really excited to continue on with watching The Bear and things like that. So I'm excited to report back at the end of the year if any of those will make my list. But currently the one to beat is The Last of Us. I have not seen a show yet that I loved as much as I loved it.
You're on IMDb, correct?
No, I track things through TV Time.
Oh, well, I
have an
don't.
app.
So
Yeah.
So I have to look through here. So obviously we've talked about it. I loved the Last of Us as well. Unfortunately, this came out about a week and a half early because my most anticipated show of the year doesn't start till July 18th. So I have not been watching a lot of television.
But it starts July 18th.
Justified.
Oh.
Justified City Primeval was my most anticipated show of the year. Jacob can attest to this. I fucking love Justified. It's my favorite show of all time. And so my expectations for this are through the roof. Yes.
Careful with that, because Dead City, it's
know,
living up to it, but careful.
So I've mainly just been catching up on certain shows. Right now, with only one episode, I can say this for me. One of my favorite cartoons I've watched this year is My Adventures with Superman. The first episode is utterly... Jacob, the Superman you want, go watch My Friends with Superman. Jack Quaid, the man can do no wrong. He is such a good Clark Kent. It's not even funny. Love him. Love that one. Let me look through here. Justified. Yeah, no, Last of Us really is just ringing for me.
Yeah.
I attempted Gotham Knights. Piece of shit. There's no other way. It's a yeah. Superman Lois. Fucking great show this year. Really good show. Great show. Alice in Borderland. Just watched the first season of that. Utterly fantastic. You can ask Jacob. Not my cup of tea. Really enjoyed the show. Oh, good lord. A lot came out this year. Super excited for Twisted Metal. The trailer came out for that, and it looks like a lot of fun. And Survivor. Survivor was my other big one this year. Survivor this year was perfect. Absolutely love Survivor. So for me, it would go right now. My favorite shows of the year so far are Last of Us, My Adventures with Superman, Survivor, and Alice in Borderland. Those are my 4 favorite shows I've seen so far this year that I really enjoyed.
That's very good. Yeah, like I said, I have a few that I'm currently watching that I'm really looking forward to.
Do you count stand-up specials as TV shows?
No. I do not.
I would say Burt Kreischer's Razzle Dazzle would be up there because that's one of the funniest things I've seen all year.
Yeah, no, that's more like a movie, I'd say. Stand-up special, I think I'd count like in the movie category. I'm not really sure where stand-up would go. That's a really good... I'm not really sure where you would place that. I wouldn't play it with a TV show, though. I wouldn't play it with TV, though. TV shows, I more think of like they have seasons and like multiple episodes type of thing.
It's part of the Emmys.
Yeah, but it's not a part of... I don't know. I don't think I count it as a show.
Well, if it was counted, Burt Kreischer would be the top.
That's fine. You can announce it. That's fine. Yeah.
Razzle Dazzle is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. So if you've never seen it before, Burt Kreischer's fantastic. Go watch it.
Well, Zachary, that looks like an outro for you.
As always, guys, thank you very much for watching this part of the June podcast. Make sure to ring-a-ling-ding-a-ling that subscribe button. Let us know what you thought of it. Man, I really screwed myself up there. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Look at the notifications. Click that ring-a-ling-ding-a-ling bell. Let us know what you thought about today's episode. Hit that comment section. Let us know what you thought of all the comments and stories we talked about. What'd you think of The Flash? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you think the box office was deserved? Do you think Andy's going to do a great job with Batman? I don't think so. I think Superman's going to be cool. We'll see you all in the next one. Later. Da, 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 da.